Hello everyone, in this video I'm gonna talk about Solus. Let's get into it. As always, let's start with a little bit of context. The first thing I want to talk about is your persistence, guys, to ask me to make a review for gaming and content creation for Solus. And to be fair, this is a distro I never put my hands on. But after doing some research, I understood why some of you were really into it. As I understand, this distro was one of the top gaming distro, I would say like 4 or 5 years ago. But is it still the best gaming distro nowadays? So what is Solus? Solus is an independent distro. It's not a fork from another, like what I call like mother distro. It's doing its thing on its own. It has its own repository, obviously, but also its own package manager, but also its own vision when it comes to the experience for the user of this operating system. When it comes to the release model, I think it's really interesting to understand how this operating system works, because they do something a little bit different. So what you need to understand is like this distro is what they called a semi-rolling release. So it's not like Arch, where you would get like whatever packages that arrive in the repo as soon as they can push it. Here, you're gonna have an update every Friday with most of the packages the maintainer, aka the developer of the distro, want to push in. If you understand it clearly, they're gonna like cherry pick the packages they really want to put in this distro. It's not going to be, all in when it comes to like new things. So you get the vision here, right? They're gonna choose really what they think is the best. Another point which I believe is interesting on top of the release model specific to this distro is the fact that the developer, they have stated that Solus was intended exclusively for use on personal computer and will not include software that is only useful in enterprise or server environment. So again, they're gonna really cherry pick what they think is better for this typical usage, which is like the desktop usage. So something to keep in mind, because when we're gonna go further in the review, all the PCs are gonna get together. On top of that, the developer of this distro are also at the origin of a desktop environment called Budgie. So during my test, during my stream last Friday, I did my review on both KDE Plasma, just to have an idea how it will perform versus my previous testing on other distro, but also tried Budgie to see what was the gaming performance on this specific desktop environment. However, I want to make clear that this review is not about the Budgie desktop environment, but it will be more around the distro Solus itself. Another point I want to mention is that I did the review of this distro a Friday, because this is the day I stream, and I do believe it did interfere with the overall testing. That was my belief. So what I did this morning, I did reinstall the distro. We are Monday today. And I redid a batch of testing to see if the fact that I installed the distro on Friday could be a problem. And it was. So I'm going to get deeper into that. But what I want to inform you is that if you go and watch the live replay, you will see that I had like two main issues. I won't name them right now. But one was actually solved by the latest update of the packages on their repo. So please, if you go and watch the full replay, make sure you take this review as your base if you want to switch to this distro. Okay, super important. Now you understand the whole context of me testing this distro, but also what this distro is all about. Let's jump into the results. So first thing first, I'm going to talk about the positive. The first thing you're going to encounter when you want to discover a new distro, you want to install like any type of new operating system, you're going to go on their website. And their website, I have to say, feels really welcoming, because there is a lot of information on it. I know some of the distros which are like becoming like more popular, they kind of like a lack of information on the website, but on their website for Solus, it was solid. There is a lot of, like blog, news, forum, which feel like they are really up to date and they are like trying to push a lot of information, which I think is great. So I do believe it's a positive. Everything is clean. You have a direct link to the download of the ISO, everything. There is this page for the download where you can see like all the multiple desktop environment you can have out of the box integrated within the ISO. I think it's pretty cool. This is a really good experience. Now, the second point is related to the install. So the install was not perfect, and we're going to talk about it in the negative too. But for the positive side, I think their installer is clean, straight to the point. I didn't have any issue during the install process. I do believe that the installation itself was one of the fastest I ever encountered. Like the installation, like it's just crazy fast. I don't know what they did, but for this, Solus, good job. Now let's talk about the Solus package manager. I do believe it's one of the best package manager I use in all my tests. So it's not at the level of Pacman, but what I really like about it is it's kind of like really easy to get into. It's not complicated. There is no weird shortcut, or I don't know you call that, but like, function. It's not like that. The package manager is straight to the point. It works well. Their repo are pretty fast. The installation process is not as good as Pacman because I think it's not as fast. However, it does work really, really well. So for the package manager, it's actually pretty darn good, I have to say. Compared to other like distro, I would say like it will be just under Pacman for me, but still better than, for example, DNF. Like this is really a really, really good package manager. Good job, guys. Another point I want to mention is the fact that all the packages you will download from their repo, they are already optimized with all the Intel instruction. So again, it's working really fast. You won't be disappointed by this side of the distro, that's for sure. Now let's talk about the two other positive points I encounter while using the distro. I have to say that the content creation part was awesome. And it was awesome because the way they, I would say, build their repo, you will have access to all the native application for content creation right off the bat. You have nothing to do. You don't have to use Flatpak. OBS is there. They have some plugin also you can download, like OBS VK Capture. They have all the, like GIMP and Ink, like all the software related to creating content. This is great. I also tried to install DaVinci Resolve, and it was a success. I just downloaded the application from DaVinci Resolve website, run it, and boom, everything worked out of the bat. I have to say, like, this was awesome. This part here was great. So now let's talk about gaming. For gaming, I'm going to be really focusing on the performance of gaming within KDE. I'm going to have a word for Budgie after, but what I'm going to say now is really related to KDE and whatever they put in terms of optimization inside Solus when it comes to gaming. And I'm using KDE because that's the desktop environment I use with all my other review, just to have, like the same type of context between distro A and distro B. Okay, so just to be clear. So the piece of optimization they put in the distro for gaming is a kernel. They have an optimized kernel up to date to the current one. So if you use the stable repo, it will be 6.8.7. You have an optimized kernel right off the bat. And the scheduler they use is the Bohr scheduler. So when it comes to performance in gaming, you're gonna have, I would say, a great experience. I know in the review I made while I was streaming, we had some issue, but I'm gonna talk about it later. But for the kernel itself and the gaming part, because it's a Bohr scheduler, what I noticed is that you will have a little bit less FPS in the bench. So let's say you're going to lose on 170 FPS, you're going to lose like 5 FPS or 4 FPS compared to another type of scheduler. But you're going to have a crazy smoothness when you go into any type of games. So I know when we did the review during my stream last Friday, it didn't work that way, and I do believe it was linked to the fact that I did install the distro during a time where they were upgrading their repo, because this morning I tried and the experience was really, really smooth. So I'm really happy I installed the distro again just to make sure everything was done right last Friday. But I can guarantee you that the gaming aspect of this distro is solid. Is it the best? No. I do believe you're going to lose like maybe 5 FPS compared to a CachyOS and whatever. But you are already optimized. And I do believe the experience, because this board is something I really like, is going to be like a smooth sail. Now let's talk about the negative. The first negative I want to talk about is the fact that if you have a card like me, a 1490, there is a high chance that you won't have the driver installed during the first installation. And what it means you're going to arrive on the black screen. So when it boots, because you can't have access to the bootloader the way Solus set up the installation there, you are just pushed toward your desktop environment, but because there is no driver, it's going to be a black screen. So you're going to have to use the TTY, you're going to have to understand the way Solus structured their distro, because they don't do everything like, I would say, like most of the common distro. So we'll cover those points after, but I want you to understand that if you have an issue, you're going to be struggling. And because the installer did not install the NVIDIA driver here, I was in quite a lot of trouble. Obviously, I fixed it, no problem, but I'm thinking like if you are someone who doesn't want to touch the TTY or just does not understand what's going on, well, you're going to be out of luck there. And yes, I don't want to hear that it's related to NVIDIA, because there is a lot of other distros that just make everything works out of the box. So here it's more like a maintainer issue than a driver issue. Now the second negative I want to talk about is obviously related to the repo. I had to install this distro 3 times to have finally a distro which works. So I know I did install the distro on Friday, which could be the source of the issue this morning. So Monday, 3 days after, I guess all the repo like went back into sync. I redid the install, and after upgrading my system, I finally got the latest current kernel, which was a 6.8.7. But again, like you can see, this is related to the way the distro is actually syncing the repo there. If you are a new user and you don't know that they're doing that on Friday, well, you're going to be in for really like a bad experience. And this is literally what happened. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't even know they were doing the resync of repo on Friday. Now, the third negative is related to Budgie. So Budgie is really clean. It's really minimalistic when it comes to desktop environment. But I would say the performance in gaming, they were not there. So maybe it's related to my actual computer. You know, maybe you're going to have a better experience, for example, with the AMD card. But what I can tell you guys right off the bat is like when it comes to gaming on X11, Budgie, it's a no-no right now, at least for me. It was not delivering as high as it should have been, and a lot of stutter. So I really hope the team is gonna move forward when we are able to move to Wayland, everyone, and Budgie is gonna do better there. But when it comes to gaming, it was meh. Like the desktop environment itself was great. Like, don't get me wrong, but for gaming again, KGE seems superior. Another negative point is related to the way they structure their distro. Okay, and this is personal here, but I like to have a custom kernel. I like to change things, and you don't have access to DKMS. So the DKMS function is just not there on this distro, and they want to do it on their own by activating the module on their end. So for example, for installing the NVIDIA driver, you can use the DKMS module, or you can have a special module integrated into the kernel. But what it means that if you want to install, for example, a custom kernel, and you need to add the DKMS module on top of it, well, it's not going to happen, right? So this is a limitation, in my opinion, because it's kind of like a restraint for the end user not be able to use DKMS. I guess on their end, it's more like a curating way of, choosing what goes on their distro or not and how they want to implement it. I get the idea. But I had, for example, a viewer in my chat who was saying like he needed a DKMS driver to undervolt his CPU. But guess what? He can't install it. And now it depends on the maintainer to be willing to add this module for him to have access to this function. To me, it's kind of a meh situation here. Now let's talk about the software center. And to me, it's a negative, and I'm going to explain you why. I think the software center is great. Like, there is a lot of positive in it, but there is something which is really bad into it and kind of like really top of my nerve. It's their search function and the navigation within the software center. I don't get it. I think the UI need to be reworked because otherwise it's great, don't get me wrong, but the UI is just like really, really bad. So I don't think it's a lot of work, but please guys, like upgrade it. I'm pretty sure like everybody's gonna be way, way happier with it because this software center UI is just bad. All right, so how do I conclude with this distro? Man, I'm so divided on this one. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, this is the 5th time I'm recording this conclusion. And each time I finish the conclusion, I'm like, no, this is not good. But I think it's going to be a weird conclusion, guys. It's going to be a weird conclusion because I'm really divided. I'm really divided because this distro on paper could be awesome. And when I say awesome, it's like their vision is one of the best. One of the best. But on the other hand, the way they implement their vision, in my opinion, is not good. It's just not good enough for us gamer and content creator. So let me explain. The idea of the semi-rolling edge release is just awesome. You get the latest packages curated by the maintainer. And then you're gonna have just the one which work on your computer. That's the idea. And this, I can't agree more. Now, why do we have, in terms of this vision, why do we choose, for example, to not include DKMS? Because what it means that it's gonna be more work for the maintainer and less option for the end user. And this, I don't understand. Maybe it's a safety issue, security issue, I don't know. But this I don't understand because it's gonna kind of like limit your approach when it comes to, you know, loading driver and anything. So that's an issue. The second one is the overall like poor implementation of certain feature or certain, I would say like driver, which are required for good user experience. So how do you explain that, for example, like my 4090, which is not a super recent card, is not recognized during the installation and I don't have my first installation boot working. It just, to me, it just, something is wrong here. So maybe it's a little tweak on their end, but it kind of like, you know, like break the overall user experience. And the software, for example, center is the same. It's like, I have the feeling, and it's just my fault here. Maybe the maintainer, they just have too much work on their plate, maintaining and you know, like curating everything, and they don't focus on what the distro really need right now. And I do believe what they really need right now is to make sure the installation process works for everyone. It's to make sure that the software center is like usable in a more UI friendly way. That's what I see, right? When I see the distro. And I'm acting like that because I'm kind of disappointed because I could see here one of the best distro ever, but it's just those little details that push it behind, in my opinion. And the last one is related to the repo. Like they need to have some type of like safeguard, which will like log the repo before it resync or something. Like for example, like what the team of CachyOS did when I mentioned to them that they had a repository like issue when it was like syncing. Like they fixed it. They were able to log certain packages during the install and make sure that it won't break your distro. Because what happens like for 4 hours and 2 different installs, I had exactly the same problem on Friday. And I do believe it comes from the repository at this point. So yes, like it sounds negative, but it's not negative. I do believe like if you are in the niche where you don't need to use GKMS, you don't have any issue with the NVIDIA driver or whatever driver you are using, again, because of the DKMS, you are in a situation where you are happy with their kernel, I would say go for it. Like, it sounds really negative, but I think overall I'm just disappointed. Okay, that's how I feel about the distro, and I want you to have like, like a real feedback. I could sugarcoat it and be like, yeah, well, this distro has some work to do and whatever. But I think they are not really far to be a great distro, but it's just not there for everyone. And this is what bothers me, okay, guys? That's why I'm struggling with this conclusion. So is it a good distro? Yes. Could it be better? Darn yes. Like it could be like one of the best. I'm not even kidding. But, we are just like one step or maybe two steps to what it could be. Anyways, I'm out, guys. Sorry for this long review, but I want you to spend some time in it because I do believe this distro requires your attention, and you might be in this niche where everything just works for you. So don't miss out on this one. Like it's not, one of those big mother distro, but I'm telling you, it's a little pearl there. Have a great one and see you next time. Bisous, bisous.